going to shrink from an honest challenge?
Get after it.
It's physics. All right, so if I lift it, I then rule Asgard?
Yes, of course.
I will be reinstituting Prima Nocta. Be right back.
Romans 8:18. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Hello, family. Welcome back. This is episode 3 of Fooling Yourself. We're continuing on with ancient and modern Britons. An early ancestor on such a tree is equally the ancestor of thousands of other people who may or may not be aware of their relation to him, but who in any case would be as well entitled as any other of his posterity to regard him as personal property. That the taint, if it be shared, is shared by a considerable number of people in the United Kingdom is shown by Mr. Huxley's statement that the dark whites constitute the majority of our population. And if some gypsyologists aver, and as there is every reason to believe, genuine gypsies of thorough gypsy descent, and not merely 19th century men who have lapsed, can be found without the faintest indication of dark blood, and yet are pure gypsies, then the unreason and absurdity of the gypsy prejudice is revealed. For this would show that the British gypsy is only an expression for pagan or archaic Britain. And the most a man of cultured ancestry can say is that his people ceased to be gypsies at an earlier stage than some others. See, we first have to understand the word Caucasian. The word Caucasian wasn't created until 1795 by a man named Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. So we're talking about a time when dominant culture didn't even call themselves by that term. So the ancient and modern Britons at this time looked more like mulatto people. They looked more like mixed race people. We're talking about England, Scotland. We talk about Ireland at this time. We talk about these people, their features were mixed with African. And so what happens is that it's after the Norman Conquest. After the Norman Conquest is when the color started to change because they started breeding the black out. This is when we had the Picts. People that talk about the gypsies, they're talking about colored people. They're talking about the mixed breed people. When you hear about the talk about dark-skinned white, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about when the people of England didn't look in the manner of what they look now, and they were bred out, and they had this thing called prima nuptia. And prima nuptia, it was the reason for the movie Braveheart. The lords of a certain region were deemed worthy to have sex with the wife for all marriages. So anyone who got married at the time, the lord of that region, he had privilege to the wife prior to the husband. So this is how they started breeding out the colored and started breeding the dominant culture into England. Thus, although the British Islands at the present day contain many millions of fair whites and not a single pure black of British descent, the fact does not predicate a similar distribution of color at, say, the date of the Norman Conquest. At any rate, whatever the date of its ascending and whatever the mode, it is clear that the white race or races gained the victory physically over the black. The Douglases, the Farrs, and the Youngs are generally dark complexioned with black hair, while the Blythes mostly are light hair and a fair complexion. If then gypsy is to be held to mean nothing more than heathen, as in Dutch Hayden or Tory or nomad, although at one time it bore special reference to those gypsies who were swarthy Egyptians. And such expelled dukes, whether Picts of the earlier Moorish or of the Egyptian Scottish or the Black Danish division, or of a jumble of all three, must have been people like the swarthy Duke Andrew, with the Druidess his wife, who we are recorded as having entered Bologna in the year 1422, and of whom or whose, like it was said, that the men were black, their hair curled, their women remarkably black, and all their faces scarred. Now that's the names of all the black people: Johnstones, Douglases, DeFores, McDuffies, Irvings, Featherstones, Fenwick, Arrington. These are the original names of black people in England. And they were tribes. Just like when you see on The Simpsons, the Ned Flanders, the next door neighbor, all right, that comes from the tribe, the Flanders. Then you had the Flemish. You had all of these tribes. They were actually originally the Germanic tribes. And you saw these Germanic tribes in the movie Gladiator. In the very beginning, when you saw those Germanic tribes, when you saw the very beginning of Gladiator, with Marcus Aurelius, when he was fighting them guys in the woods, those were the Germanic tribes. Those were the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, and the Vandals. And these people eventually came back and sacked Rome. They destroyed Rome. And when they destroyed Rome, they destroyed the Silk Route, because Rome was only prospering because of Asia and Africa. Because everything that they was getting from Asia and Africa, this is why Rome was prospering. So what happens when the Vandals came and the Visigoths, Ostrogoths, they came back and sacked Rome. Those guys eventually in the beginning of Gladiator came and destroyed Rome. When they came back and destroyed Rome, it sent Europe into this thing called the Dark Ages. And Europe was in the Dark Ages for 400 years. They were in the Dark Ages for 4 years. There were plague, no food, everything, starvation, all these different things, right? All the way up until the 13th century. This is when they started this thing called the Age of Enlightenment. And this is when things started to change in Europe. So what happens is that we got to understand European history to understand our own history. This is the most important key. We keep letting someone else tell us about our own history, but they got to call the Queen of Scotia. The Queen of Scotia, she was buried, she was a black woman. You follow what I'm saying? She was buried with all these riches. That's how they had to acknowledge she was a black woman, and she was of high stature because she was buried with all these riches. These are the things that we don't know about our people, and these are self-esteem builders. These are the builders that say that you come from the conquerors of the entire world. Yeah, the rest of the world came on and added on to what we did, but we are the creators and the foundators of it. This is why the attack of the dominant culture makes sure that our ingenuity, anything that we have that's prosperous, anything that edify us, they funnel it through their system. They make sure they funnel through their system so it benefits them, and it no longer benefits us. And as long as we inside ourselves feel insecure, as long as we as a people don't understand that the strength comes from within, that even all our religious systems tell us the strength comes within. Each religious system tells you that the strength comes within. Each religious system tells you that God is within you. And not that you're God, but the Spirit of God and His capabilities, His mobility is inside of you. And we don't understand that. That's what we got to understand.